My stepfather promised to put my name on the house after my mother died. Instead, he sold it and disappeared with his son. When I tracked him down, he said, "You were just her leftover." I said nothing until I found the final version of her while she had locked in her safety deposit box with my name written on. My mother died 3 years ago, and I still haven't really grieved her. Not properly. I think the shock of everything that happened afterward buried the pain. I haven't had time to mourn. Not when everything she built, everything she wanted for me, was ripped away within weeks of her death. I was 28 when she passed. I'd moved back home 2 years earlier to help when the diagnosis came: lung cancer, stage 4. She never smoked a day in her life, but there it was. At first, I told myself I'd just stay for a little while, help with doctor's appointments and meds, keep her company. But when she got worse, I quit my job and took care of her full-time. I didn't even think twice. Ray, my stepfather, was around, technically. He lived there. But he barely lifted a finger. He always had some excuse: long hours at work, stress, needing time to clear his head. Most nights he'd sit in the garage with a beer, the TV on. Sometimes he wouldn't even come home. I remember once asking him if he could take her to an appointment so I could catch some sleep after being up all night with her. He looked right at me and said, "Can't. I've got a golf thing." Ray married my mom when I was 11. My real dad left when I was 6, and I never heard from him again. Ray wasn't abusive or anything, not physically. But he never showed me warmth, never treated me like his own. He had a son from a previous marriage, Tyler, who was a year older than me. Tyler was trouble from the start. Stole money, got arrested for shoplifting, wrecked a car that wasn't his. Still, Ray made excuses for him every time. The house we lived in was bought by my mom when I was a kid. It was her house, paid for with the life insurance from my grandfather. She never added Ray to the deed, and I remember her saying, more than once, "This house will be yours someday. I want you to always have a place." The night before she died, she grabbed my hand and told me, "Don't let Ray force you out. I've made sure you're protected. The will's updated. It's in a safe place." She didn't say where. I wish I'd pushed her to be more specific. But she was so weak and I didn't want to stress her more. After the funeral, Ray wasted no time. He started boxing up her things the next day. Didn't ask me, didn't say a word. Just started clearing out her room like she was some stranger who'd overstayed her welcome. By the end of the week, he told me, "You should start looking for a place. I can't stay here anymore. Too many memories." I said, "Mom said I could stay here, that the house was going to me." He gave me this smug little smile and said, "She told me to do what I thought was right. And I think it's time we both moved on." I asked about the will. He pulled out an old, crumpled document from a kitchen drawer. It was dated almost 10 years back. It left everything to him. He said, "This is the only one I could find." I didn't know what to do. I wasn't listed on the deed. The will looked legitimate. I had no legal background, no lawyer, no money. I called a few places, but they told me without proof of a newer will, there wasn't much I could do. 3 weeks later, the house was sold. No warning, no listing, no sign. He sold it to some investor for cash. One day I came back from the grocery store and found the locks changed. A note taped to the front door said I had 72 hours to collect my things. Most of it was already gone. Ray disappeared. Didn't answer calls or texts. Tyler too. I had nowhere to go. I slept in my car for a week until a friend from college let me crash on her couch. That year was hell. I worked odd jobs, tried to scrape together enough for a cheap apartment. I bounced around, living on the edge. Meanwhile, the house that was supposed to be mine was flipped and sold again. I looked it up on Zillow. It had new floors, a fresh paint job, and a listing price 3 times what it sold for when Ray got rid of it. I called every bank I could think of. My mom had mentioned a safety deposit box once, a long time ago. It took months of dead ends, but finally one branch in town confirmed they had a box under her name that hadn't been claimed. I begged them to let me see it. They made me jump through every hoop: death certificate, proof I was her only child, probate court letters. It took forever. When they finally opened it, I thought I was going to be sick. There was an envelope. My name on the front, in her handwriting. Inside was a new will, dated 6 months before she passed.
Signed.
Notarized. Official. It left the house to me. Everything else, her savings, her car, her jewelry, was split between me and a few charities she loved. Ray and Tyler weren't mentioned. Not once. I cried. Right there in the bank vault. It wasn't even about the house anymore. It was proof that she meant what she said. That I wasn't crazy. That she'd tried to protect me, even when she was dying. I hired a lawyer the next day. He said what Ray did, selling that house while knowing there was a newer will, was fraud. Maybe even criminal, if we could prove he knew about the updated version. It took another 6 months to find him. He'd moved to Henderson, Nevada. Bought a townhouse in cash. Opened a used car dealership with Tyler. It was all in the public records once we started digging. I drove there myself. I wanted to look him in the face. He opened the door and looked stunned for half a second. Then he smirked, like he wasn't surprised. I handed him a copy of the will. Watched his eyes move over the page. He looked up and said, "You were just her leftover. She felt sorry for you." I didn't answer. Because now I didn't need to. Now I had proof. And I had a plan. I walked away from Ray's door without another word. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because nothing I could say would matter more than what I was about to do. My lawyer filed a motion to contest the property transfer. Since the house had already been sold and flipped, I couldn't get it back, but that didn't mean Ray was in the clear. The money he made from the sale? That was another story. Especially since we now had a legal will showing I was the rightful heir. Ray tried to delay everything. His lawyer, some greasy guy who looked like he specialized in car accidents and DUI defenses, tried to argue the will wasn't valid. That mom must have been confused when she signed it. That Ray had no idea there was a new version. But we had the notary's statement. Dated.
Witnessed.
My mom had her full faculties then. She'd even visited the bank that same week. Records confirmed it. Ray's story started to fall apart fast. And then came the deposit slips. Turns out, Ray didn't just sell the house and use the money for that townhouse in Nevada. He also moved $118,000 into a shared account with Tyler within days of the sale. That account had been drained within 2 months, split into multiple cash withdrawals, all under $10,000 to avoid bank reporting thresholds. My lawyer laid it out for me. We can sue. You probably won't get the full value back, but you'll get something. And we can press for punitive damages. This was fraud. Ray tried to settle. His lawyer sent us an offer, $40,000. No apology. No admission of guilt. Just a lowball attempt to make it all go away. I refused. Because it wasn't about the money anymore. This was about my mom. Her dying wish. The years I spent taking care of her while Ray was off playing golf and Tyler was God knows where. This was about the couch I slept on while they spent the money meant to keep me safe. I wanted this in court.
Public.
So we pushed ahead. That's when the pressure started. First, I got a call from Tyler. He hadn't spoken to me in years. "You need to drop this," he said. "You don't know what you're doing." I told him I knew exactly what I was doing. Then came the messages, blocked numbers, anonymous texts. "You're ruining what's left of your family. Your mom would be ashamed. You'll end up with nothing." I saved every one of them. When we deposed Ray, he melted down. Started talking about all the money he invested in the house over the years. The paint, the new washer. As if buying a few appliances meant he had a right to steal the roof over my head. He slipped up, too. Said something about knowing she kept things from him. That line? That line cost him everything. Because it showed he did know there was a newer will. Even if he hadn't seen it, he suspected it, and still went ahead with the sale. That was enough. The judge ruled in my favor on almost every count.
Fraud.
Conversion. Breach of fiduciary duty. Ray was ordered to pay me $164,000. Plus legal fees. He didn't have it. Most of the money was gone. blown on Tyler's failing business and God knows what else. So the court put a lien on the townhouse, froze his accounts, garnished Tyler's wages. After the court ruling, I thought I'd feel relief, maybe even some peace. But all I felt was hollow. The judgment was official. Ray was legally responsible for what he did, but collecting the money was a whole other story. He drained almost every account. The townhouse was leveraged with a shady second mortgage taken out right before the trial. I couldn't figure out how he even got it until my lawyer dug deeper. Turns out, Ray had forged my mom's signature on a few old financial documents. Nothing directly tied to the will, but enough to raise red flags. Lines of credit, insurance paperwork. He'd been setting things up for months before she died, just in case something like this happened. My lawyer called it calculated fraud with a long tail. Said we could go to law enforcement now.
We did.
Ray got charged financial elder abuse, forgery, wire fraud. I testified in front of a grand jury. Told them how he lied, manipulated, how he left me homeless while he and his son burned through the money my mother left for me. It made the papers. Small piece in the Las Vegas Review-Journal. That's when something strange happened. I got a call from a woman I didn't know. She said her name was Monica. Said she used to work with Ray years ago.
He's done this before, she said.
Apparently, Ray had been married once before his marriage to Tyler's mother. Back in Iowa. That woman died too. Sudden stroke. Left Ray as the sole beneficiary. Monica said there were rumors, but no proof. Just that money vanished fast, and Ray left town soon after. She said she'd kept quiet all these years, but when she saw the article, she felt sick. Said, I think he's been doing this for a long time. I started digging. It took time, but I found someone else, Ray's ex-girlfriend from the early 2000s. She said he pressured her to co-sign on a property and then ghosted her when she refused. She said he made her feel crazy, like she was being ungrateful for all he was offering. Pattern of manipulation. Gaslighting. Always targeting women with something to lose. I compiled everything, every name, every story, and gave it to the DA. Ray was arrested 2 months later. Not just for what he did to me, but for a string of financial crimes going back decades. Turns out he never filed proper taxes on any of the proceeds from the house. Never declared the withdrawals. They hit him with tax evasion too. He tried to blame Tyler. Said the kid was the one who took the money, who misled him. But Tyler cracked in a heartbeat. Gave the police everything. Emails. Messages. Even a voice recording of Ray saying she was dying, she didn't need the damn house. Tyler took a deal, probation and community service. Ray wasn't so lucky. But even that wasn't the real twist. The real twist came when the DA's office called and said they'd found a hidden account under a fake business name. It was still active. It had over $93,000 in it. They froze it. And after everything cleared, that money came to me. Legally.
Clean.
Final. But revenge isn't just about money. It's about making sure the person who thought they could ruin you lives long enough to see you rise. And Ray? He'd be watching every dollar go back to me from the inside of a prison cell. Ray was sentenced to 5 years. It should have been more, but with good behavior and time served before trial, they said he'd probably be out in 3. That didn't sit right with me, but I told myself prison wasn't the whole revenge. It was just part of it. Tyler vanished after the trial. Moved to Arizona. Changed his last name. I heard he works in a strip mall tire shop now. No social media, no business listings, nothing. He wanted to disappear. That was fine with me. He wasn't my focus. Ray was. The last time I saw him in person was at the sentencing. He shuffled in, thinner, pale, wearing a wrinkled county-issued jumpsuit.
He didn't look at me.
Not once. When the judge asked if I had anything to say, I stood up and read a short statement. I said, "You knew exactly what you were doing. You watched her die, and the whole time you were plotting. You left me homeless. You took what she built for me, what she worked for, what she meant to leave me, and you threw it away like trash. But I'm still here. I've rebuilt my life. I have a home again. And I sleep at night because I never had to lie to do it. He didn't flinch, just kept staring at the table. After that, I moved back to Michigan. Not to the same town, but close enough. I bought a small craftsman house with the recovered money. Nothing flashy, just clean and safe. My name's on the deed. Every time I walk through the front door, I think about what my mom said. This house will be yours someday. I want you to always have a place. I framed her will. The real one. It's in my hallway, right next to the front closet. I also got a copy of the deed to Ray's old townhouse after the court placed the lien on it. It took over a year, but eventually, it was seized and sold to satisfy part of the judgment.
I didn't buy it.
I didn't want that place, but I did something else. I wrote to the new owners anonymously, sent them copies of court documents, articles, and the sentencing records, just so they'd know what kind of man used to live there. I heard from a neighbor later that Ray's name is mud in that community. Nobody missed him. His car lot shut down. Tyler's name is on a list of failed business owners flagged for fraud. But here's the part that really stuck. About a year after Ray went to prison, I got a letter. No return address.
No signature.
Just a single sheet of lined paper, torn from a yellow pad. All it said was, "She always loved you more." I knew it. That's why I did it. I kept that letter, because it was the closest thing to a confession I'd ever get. And it told me something I hadn't let myself believe until then, that Ray knew what he was doing from the start. It wasn't just greed. It was punishment. He wanted to erase me because he couldn't stand that my mother still loved me more than she ever loved him. But he failed. He lost everything. And I'm still standing. She said I'd always have a place. And now I do. Forever.